Okay, hello. Starting the afternoon stream to make sure that we're not going to be behind. So, as everybody is coming in, I do have a question for you. If you were a juror, do you think the defense attorney, Alan Jackson, went too hard on the recross? Not in the beginning, but the recross, like towards the end. Like he got a bit aggressive. Not as bad as yesterday with the paramedic, Timothy Nuttall, but I see some on the social platforms actually questioning the same thing. And a lot of them are lawyers. It might not be a good look for the jury. I'm just saying, you know, do it when necessary. I get why. I'm just like, if it's not necessary. He was decidedly argumentative and it's not a good look. That's what I'm thinking because it wasn't necessary. You could get that information out there without the tone, without the aggressiveness. But that's his style, I guess. It's been pretty rough in other trials too, so it's a bit much. But look, I actually started the stream on time too. So as soon as they come back from lunch, we'll be on schedule. I'm actually quite pleased that we got caught up before the other one ended, so we weren't really going too far into the lunch. Everybody got a good break. I can't believe. Okay, I'm going to have to delete that. Okay, I actually. Okay, unpin. I'm going to have to repost that. I just copied it from yesterday. I mean, from this morning. And I'm just going to redo it. Let's see. Put it in this one. Here we go. Fingers cooperate. You're awake now. Like no more of these really bad typos. Hopefully. All right, there. Okay, that ought to do it. Hi, Couch. I know he's just he was bad enough that I broke away from the usual so and so is an a-hole naming scheme for the bingo square. Exactly. It's unnecessarily arrogant and challenging. Like I know the point he's trying to make and what he's trying to put out in front of the jury, but in my opinion, he's putting out so much more, and he's really making himself look bad because he spends all that time trying to make him look like something didn't happen. And then the Commonwealth comes behind him and plays the clip where his own client admits it happened. It's not good. Not good. We have two more the witnesses for this afternoon. Mr. Guarino, I think he's an officer who will be actually or he's one of the ones entering some of the data in like text messages and stuff like that. He has to testify to where they came from. But there was contention this morning about that because of Celebrate did do an update, so of course reports are being repulled in better condition, and of course there's going to be some issues about that back and forth between the defense and the Commonwealth, and they wanted more time, so his full testimony won't be today. But I do believe that Hank Brennan has said that Mrs. O'Keefe, John O'Keefe's mother, would be taking the stand today. And she did not testify in the first trial. Hi, Purple. Hey, Shill. Purple Dragon Shill. Thanks for the ordering. Aw, thank you. I wish that when I put this up, they could see the super sticker, but it's a huge cup of coffee, which is always greatly appreciated. Not only do I love my otterings because they always make me smile, but coffee is life, people, at least in my world. And I am on my second cup. We had a rough morning, or at least a rough start. It actually turned out pretty good. I saw Couch. We got two more subscribers in Twitch. We're at 27. We have only 23 more to go, but we're more than halfway there, so I'm pleased. It's a big transition. Did you just wake up? You know what? I feel you because this is when I normally, like, around when I get up. Sometime from 12:30 to 2 o'clock most days, because I'm usually up most of the night. But I actually went to bed a little after 4 last night. It wasn't too bad. So I got a few hours in. And I woke up and there was no internet. Like, I woke up on time. I set the alarm for 1:15, splash some water on my face. I go and push the button, and there's no internet. Oh, sorry you hit your knee there, Cheryl. But there's so much. Like, reviewing last night's testimony after we did the Lori Vallow-Daybell verdict watch, which was so great to do with you guys. Like, I didn't edit it either because I didn't want to lose the chat. I left the whole thing there. I left everything, you know. Do I know why the internet was down? No, I do not, Sheil. I did, I called and they said I wasn't the only one who called. They didn't have an area that they were doing anything, but they said that there was some work being done in the area. Like they didn't have like a down message for the area. It wasn't showing up on the map, but there was trucks working in the area, so something could have happened. And they just didn't know about it yet, but it resolved pretty quickly, like within the hour. They, I don't know how long it was down before I woke up, but from the time I woke up, like I was up here before 10. Oh gosh, it happens. I'm in the market for a new personal laptop since my kids spilled water all around it. It seems to be working okay in the end. But it's a wake-up call that if one goes down, we don't have another computer at home. Oh, yeah. You're probably right to get a backup laptop in. I'm going to too because of the whole Windows 10 issue, you know. Only like for doing my tax stuff because I already got a notification. They must have a deal with Microsoft that as soon as Microsoft doesn't uphold 10, like you can't access the software anymore if you're not on above 10, which is like bogus BS, but you know how it goes. They all make deals, yeah. Hi, Liam. And yep, we are. I hear noise. So, hello, fan. I'm a fan of the fan.
Council sidebar.
Okay, so they came up just for a sidebar. That's lovely. We're going to take a tour around the ceiling now. Oh, look, a different fan. There's two fans, Couch. You might have been right. I think you might be right about that. You asked me if in the beginning of the video it was a different fan. I wasn't sure. Oh, we're getting a nice galley photo here. Okay, that corner is the journalists. That person, Chris, there is the AV guy. I think he might be the feed person. Not sure. I understand, Couch, that they're doing it for a good reason, probably for a protection reason, like you said, you know. Yeah, Couch has two fans now. Rocket Couch has two special fans, all his own. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, jurors. Thank you. All right. Your next witness, please, Mr.
Thank you, Your Honor. The Commonwealth calls Peggy O'Keefe.
You solemnly swear the evidence here to report the jury in the case now hearing should be true, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God.
So, good afternoon, Mrs. O'Keefe. Yeah. All right, Mr. Brennan, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Mrs. O'Keefe.
Good afternoon, Mr. Brennan.
Could you kindly introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Margaret O'Keefe. I am John O'Keefe's mother.
Are you married?
Yes,
Who are you married to?
John O'Keefe Jr.
How long have you been married for?
Too long. 53 years.
I'm sorry, ma'am, I didn't hear you.
53. Long enough?
How long have you lived in the area?
We moved to Canton 3 years ago.
Before you moved to Canton 3 years ago, where did you live?
Braintree.
How long had you lived in Braintree for?
50 years?
Did you begin your family in Braintree?
No, we lived in Mattapan first, and that's where my daughter was born. And then we moved to Braintree.
Your daughter was born when you were in Mattapan?
Mm-hmm.
Your daughter's name?
Kristen.
How many children did you have?
3.
You, Kristen and John.
And Paul,
Is Paul the youngest, the baby?
the baby.
Did you raise your children? How long were you in Mattapan before you moved closer to here?
I'm sorry, repeat that?
How long did you live in Mattapan before you moved closer?
2 years
And then the rest of the time you were in the area?
in Braintree.
Tell me a little bit about your immediate family.
My daughter. My daughter Kristen had a tumor, a cancerous tumor that she had for 5 months. She died in November of 13. She had 2 children. And then 2 months after she passed, her husband passed from a heart attack. And then you all know about John. And then my son Paul is over there.
That was 2013, ma'am? Could I ask you about her children?
She had 2 children, Kaylee, who's now 17, and Patrick is 14. He's a run for my money.
Do you remember how old the children were when your daughter passed?
3 and 6.
When that happened, was there any plan for the children?
As far as
Or what was going to happen with the children?
when she passed
Yes, ma'am.
and when he passed,
Yes, ma'am.
my son decided to be the head guardian, and then we had I was the other guardian, and there was Steve's brother and sister were the other 2 guardians. There's 4 of us.
May I approach you, adjust the microphone?
Yes, please.
Oh,
Thank you.
talking too soft. Okay.
Did I understand that there was a decision that John would be the primary guardian? Can you share with us how that decision came about?
Well, he was single. The other 2 guardians were married, and they didn't have children, but he decided to do it himself, and then I was the second one in case he needed me. So I was over there most of the time, like when the kids get home from school or, take them places, and then have them on weekends so he could have a break. So that's what I did.
Did other people help out in addition to you and John?
Yes, my husband was there, and Paul and Erin were there, and the other members of Steve's family.
I understand at some point John worked in law enforcement.
Yes.
Besides that, could you just share just a little bit about him with us?
He was a police officer at headquarters. And when he first started, he was in Hyde Park, and then he moved to Dorchester, and then into Boston itself, and that's what he did.
I was hoping if you could tell us a little bit about John besides his work.
He was enthusiastic with sports. He was wonderful with the kids. He took care of them and did everything for them. Take them places on vacations and everything. He was their number one, and they called him JJ.
Would you mind if I showed you a photograph?
No.
May I approach?
Yes.
I'm showing you a photograph.
Okay.
And could you tell us what you see?
That's my son?
Thank you. May I introduce this as an exhibit?
Yes.
Is it 16?
Thank you. With the court's permission, I'd like to publish.
Yes.
Ms. O'Keefe, do you know when this picture was taken?
Oh. I really don't know. It was in the summer of I don't know what year. I really don't know the year. But is that one he probably took him to a fair or an amusement park, and he had his picture taken there with it. And then the kids were with him too. So.
Do you know how old he was in that picture?
43, maybe.
Okay. What year was John born?
75.
Ms. Gilman, could you take the photo down, please? How old was John when he passed?
45. My mind's not working right now.
I understand. It's okay. Can I ask you a few more questions? Okay. You let me know. I want to go back to the morning of January 29th, 2022. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Were you home
I was home in Braintree.
in Braintree?
Mhm.
Who were you with?
My husband?
Did you receive a phone call?
Yes, from Carrie Roberts. It was about 6:15, between 6:15 and 6:30 in the morning.
Did you know Carrie Roberts?
Yes,
How did you know her?
she lived in Braintree for a while. John and her were friends. They went to the junior prom together. And then we found out that she moved. She lived in Canton, and she was around the corner from us, and she helped us out with the kids.
And when you were helping take care of the kids, would you often see Miss Roberts?
Yeah, because she'd take Patrick and her son Ryan places. And yeah, so I saw her all the time.
Often?
Yeah.
When she called you that morning, do you remember the conversation?
Yeah, she said John was found in a snowbank. And I didn't understand, which I said, what do you mean found in a snowbank? She said, they found him in the snow. They don't know what happened. She says he's brought up to the Good Samaritan Hospital. So she says, I'm going to come get you and Papa because I don't want you driving. And I says, we can drive there. We both have four-wheel drives. She says, no, I'm coming. So she came to get us. And it took a while to get there because the snow was bad. And in the meantime, I had called one of my nieces to find out because one of my other nieces worked at Good Samaritan. I just wanted to know if she could find out anything about it. And I just couldn't get a hold of her. So when we get up there, they told us to sit in this room and they would bring us down shortly. So finally they said, okay, you can go down. So we started walking down the corridor. And as I'm walking down, I hear Karen Reed yell, Peg, is he dead? Is he dead, Peg? Peg, is he dead? And I just kept walking. And then I asked, I don't know who it was, a nurse or a worker at the hospital. And I said, what is she doing here? And she says, oh, she's being psych evaluated. So then they brought us down to the room where my son was. He's bruised up. His eyes were closed. It's just not a good scene.
Okay. I'd like to go back, if I may.
Okay.
May I?
Yep.
When Carrie Roberts picked you up in the car, did anybody go with you and Miss Roberts on the drive from your home in Braintree to Good Samaritan Hospital?
No, we were the only three in the car.
Who was the third person?
My husband.
During the drive to Good Samaritan Hospital that morning,
Yep.
did you ever have a chance while you were in the car to speak to the defendant?
Yes.
Please tell the jury about that conversation.
She, I asked her what happened, and she said, we went to a party. I left him there. I said, you just left him there? She said, yes, I just left him there.
Did she say whether she left him inside or outside?
No, she just said, I left him there.
Did she tell you whether or not she left him in the driveway or the street?
She just said, no, I just left him there.
You told us that when you got into Good Samaritan Hospital, you were walking down the hallway and you had another interaction with the defendant.
Yes.
And you told us that she was asking if he was dead.
Mm-hmm.
Can you describe a little bit where in the hospital you had this interaction with her?
When they took us down to the emergency room, the doors open, and there was a corridor to go down to the other rooms, and she was on the left-hand side, and that's when she saw me come in, and that's when she started yelling, is he dead, Peg? Is he dead, Peg?
So when she was yelling, could you describe her mood or demeanor? Was she animated?
She's just loud, and I don't know. She was just loud, and as she was saying it,
And when she was asking you, is he dead? Is he dead? Did you again ask her a question?
I just asked the nurse, "What is she doing here?"
And did you speak to Miss Reed herself?
No.
At some point, and you and your husband got to see John?
Yes.
And were you with Kerry at some point?
Kerry was there, and then my son Paul was there.
How did you get home?
I think I went home with Paul, and I think my husband went home with Kerry. We went back to Canton at the time.
Do you remember generally the time frame? Was it morning, afternoon, evening?
No, it was morning.
Do you remember getting home that day?
Yeah, it was snowy, icy.
Was anybody home when you got
No.
back?
No, it was just us. And then the kids started coming home. And that's when I was trying to, take care of them. And then there was a knock at the door. And it was Karen, her father, and her brother asked if they could come in. And I was just trying to calm the kids because Patrick was just out of control, yelling. And then they came in. And then he said, "Do you mind if we go upstairs and get a couple of her things?" Which I never should have let them go up there. But at the time, I just couldn't think straight. And I really didn't have anybody else to help me keep them down in the kitchen. So I don't know what they got up there, what they did up there.
How long were they, when you say upstairs, do you know what room they went to?
I assumed the bedroom.
So I'm going to strike that, Mrs. O'Keefe. If you could just, what you actually know, okay? And Mr. Brennan can ask a better question.
Thank you. Could I lead a bit?
Yes.
Ma'am, how many rooms are upstairs in John's home?
1, 2, 3, 4 bedrooms and an office. And off the master bedroom, there's a bathroom, and then there's a closet. It's a big house.
Did you see the defendant and her father go upstairs?
I didn't really see them go up, but I knew they were up there because I could hear them.
You didn't follow them up or go to look?
No.
You didn't know which room or rooms they were in?
No, I'm assuming the bathroom and the master bedroom.
My question was poor. You didn't see which rooms they actually went in?
No.
How long was the defendant upstairs in John's home with her father?
I don't know, maybe 10, 15 minutes.
Did you see them come back down?
No, I did not.
When they were upstairs, what were you doing?
I was trying to calm the kids.
Both of them?
But yeah, well, mainly Patrick.
How was Patrick reacting?
He was very upset once we told him because he slept over a friend's house the night before. And he just said, "I'll never see him again." Sorry.
Would you like a moment?
Mrs. O'Keefe, would you like to take a short break?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
You can just let me know when you're ready. Take your time.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh.
You ready?
Go ahead.
Okay. That morning, when the defendant and her father came into your home, did you personally interact with the defendant?
Nope.
Was there any hugs, condolences?
Nope.
Did you ever confront the defendant with any accusations when she was in your home that morning?
I don't even remember her being in the house. When she went upstairs, that's the last I saw of her.
Did you ever lean over a kitchen island? Do you have a kitchen island in your house?
No.
Did you ever lean over the kitchen island and say, I think he looks like he got hit by a car?
No. I don't remember talking to her that morning.
Did you see when she left?
Nope.
Did you ever see her Lexus in the driveway?
No.
The children, who's their guardian and custodian now?
Well, there's still 4 of us. 4 of us.
Where do they live?
One in Boston, one in Stoughton, and Paul's in Bridgewater, and me,
Where do the children live?
with me, in Canton.
They live with you full time?
Yes,
You're their primary caretaker?
yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, just a moment.
Oh, this is hard. All right, question is, what will AJ do? Mr. Jackson, behave yourself. Don't even cross this witness. There's nothing for you to do but look bad. Oh,
Okay.
Mrs. O'Keefe, I'm very, very sorry for your loss. I have no questions for you.
All right, Mrs. O'Keefe.
oh, what a strategic bullshit move that was. Gotta give him credit though. That was slick. Talk about theater, right? I know, but what kind of move was that, right? It's totally slimy. Hey, Jasper.
I would like to introduce 2 clips, labeled 4 and 5.
More clips.
Yeah, both on. Both,
Can you explain?
both clips 4 and 5 are on that zip drive.
Okay. 17. There's no objection to these? I don't know what they are. Is there a second?
I see why we lost the volume. Sidebar again. Okay, I have a feeling that the defense has caught on that all of Karen's own words are going to be very, very damaging, and they are going to do a sidebar before every single clip now. Why did he actually even go up there? I know why, because it was very evident in Mrs. O'Keefe's testimony that Karen did not apologize, did not even give condolences, wasn't bonding with the family over all this. She just wanted to get out of there. And so what does it prove that her attorney went up there and said, my deepest sympathies, and I have no questions for you? Like the jury is supposed to believe that they are sympathetic? I don't know. What kind of a move that was? It just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Well, then again, unfortunately, I know too much. I wish I didn't know anything about this case, because I really do think it's going to come back down to the evidence that is actually put forth and the expert witnesses. There are so many issues that are argued by the attorneys in their experts, like the wounds on his arm dog bite versus scratches, glass, whether or not Karen Reed's vehicle actually backed up. But there's also the tail light, which I think already they showed a video in the very first witness testimony that showed that the tail light was broken. Yeah, it's not enough to make up for the client's behavior. And in my opinion, it actually just highlighted it. Because if I was on the jury, I would be like, what was that? Like, what was that? You know? It's almost like Mr. Jackson thinks that he can play the jury. I know he thinks that he can play the jury. But, like, at one point, does the jury look at you and go, like, you're not going to treat us like that? Like, we can't be played like that, Mr. Jackson. Stop it. Yeah, I said sorry. Don't get mad. I know. It was just weird. It was just very weird. But I want to see this clip. I want to see what we're going to see next from the Gretchen Voss interviews. And the last one wasn't even part of the aired documentary. It was the off the record cuts, which they also have access to, because everything that she said, because she had her lawyers there, is free for the Commonwealth to use. I'm glad he didn't cross her too, Teresa. I'm glad for her. She didn't need to be badgered. She didn't need to be intimidated. It was hard enough to her to take the stand. It's very brave of her to talk about her tragedies. I don't know what he's doing, but he does it often. Liam, I don't know what that is. Karen Reed's father and mother sitting there, and I don't know what it must be a piece of candy.
There is another short recess. Hopefully you'll get to walk right through the first section courtroom this time.
Oh my goodness.
Court, all rise, please. Jurors, close your notebooks and follow me.
Looks like defense won again to be able to look at their clip and prepare. They need time, because they're not ready. Like, even though everything has been put into evidence. Oh, yeah. I think I'm going to just stay down here like this and just let the fan go, so we don't miss when they come back in. That statement distracted you from what was said after? You mean? Oh, they're going to argue something.
Please be seated.
Oh,
All
boy.
right, so I'll watch the first one, then I'll hear your argument, Mr. Brennan and Mr. Jackson.
Oh, they don't want it to come in.
So, Ms. Gilman, if you play that first one, please.
Well, we get to see it. No jury present, by the way, people. The jury was
into the driveway before me. So I was presuming she saw my cracked taillight and was thinking, did you hit my son? I could sense from her that she was looking at me very warily. And then when John's nephew came home, I just wanted to see him and squeeze him. It was quite uncomfortable. I said, Dad, come upstairs to the master bedroom. I said, I think I need to leave. Because I think John's mother thinks I did something to John.
All right, so tell me why I should admit that clip.
You should admit this clip because it demonstrates consciousness of guilt. On the morning of John's death, Miss O'Keefe sees her son at the hospital and goes back to Mr. O'Keefe's home. In the driveway is the alleged murder weapon, the Lexus with the broken taillight. It's the middle of a snowstorm, and a prelude to that is there is a phone call from the defendant's father to the Dighton police looking for a ride to go in and see his daughter at the Good Samaritan Hospital. He's looking for a police ride because the weather conditions are so terrible. When the Dighton Police Department declines that ride, he gets the assistance of his son and his son's wife pick him up and bring him to the hospital. At the hospital, there are a number of comments made. I think I hit something. There is evidence we have where the defendant, her mother, and her father admittedly discuss in different ways the broken taillight. It is an issue that is primary on their mind. In this tumultuous, grieving moment, the taillight is central between these parties. Uninvited, the defendant and her father go to the O'Keefe house without invitation. They knock on the door and they ask to come in. They go into the house. There does not seem to be any interaction, at least with Peggy O'Keefe. And curiously, they go upstairs for 15 minutes. They stay at the house for less than an hour. This is a family that's grieving the loss of their son. Less than an hour, they go back outside. Instead of leaving in the one car, they take the alleged murder weapon, they get into two cars, and they drive away and remove the Lexus with the broken taillight from the scene. That is clear consciousness of guilt evidence, removing the murder weapon from an area where witnesses can see, photograph, identify the damage. In fact, despite the other evidence about the cracked taillight in the testimony, it is a centrally contested issue in this case. The defense is already questioned and confronted, as they have a right to do, about the shape, manner, and extent of that broken taillight. The removal of it is helpful for the defendant. And so the fact that they stay for less than an hour, remove the Lexus from the scene is important. This statement by the defendant is clearly an attempt to create an excuse, a ruse, for why they removed the murder weapon from the scene. It is an attempt to suggest that she somehow is targeted. She somehow on that morning is victimized. She somehow on that morning is the intent or the object of something that is abusive from Peggy O'Keefe. And so this evidence will demonstrate a key part of our consciousness of guilt evidence on this issue, that there was no viable reason to take that evidence from the scene other than to obscure it. It was not because Peggy O'Keefe yelled at her or intimidated her or threatened her. This was, again, a central conversation between her, her father, and her mother in those early morning hours. This is what was foremost in their mind. And so that's why it's not only relevant, it is an extraordinarily strong piece of the conscience of guilt evidence. And inevitably, the defense may or may not try to provide some type of explanation or excuse, but we have a right to the full force of our proof, and this is part of it.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Your Honor. With regard to the first clip, which is clip 4,
That's the only one we're discussing right now.
then in that case, now that I look at it and I see the transcript, I'll withdraw an objection. I don't care. It's not, I don't agree with anything Mr. Brennan just said. It doesn't go to consciousness of guilt. As a matter of fact, I think it very clearly shows the opposite. But
Okay, so there's no objection. So there wasn't an objection until I said, is there any objection to this? And then you all came to sidebar. I mean, they were just going to play. So there's no objection to the first clip, right?
yes, correct.
Okay, so let's hear.
I made an objection to sidebar. I'm withdrawing.
Okay, so Mr. Brennan, play the second one, please.
Yes.
And his mother leans over the kitchen island and says to me, I think he looks like he got hit by a car. He looks like he got hit by a car.
Okay, so tell me how this comes in.
Similarly, conscience of guilt evidence, the defendant making what we allege is a false statement to try to excuse her conduct of removing evidence of a crime from the scene. This has additional import. It has two facets to it. One, equally as important for conscience of guilt in the first part, as I supported for clip number 4 or 5. Secondly, it is important because we've heard testimony from Peggy O'Keefe that this claim never happened. So we now have direct testimony that she did not have a conversation with the defendant, did not make these claims to the defendant. And so while also conscience of guilt evidence, it has additional support from the previous clip.
Right, Mr. Jackson?
Thank you. With this video clip, Your Honor, it's very different. It has absolutely nothing to do with consciousness of guilt. The argument is baffling. How could that possibly be consciousness of guilt if my client is simply reiterating something that she believes somebody else said? This clip is obviously, very obviously, and strategically being used to try to vilify my client with something that's completely irrelevant. In Massachusetts, you can't call a witness just for the purposes of impeaching them. What this clip would be doing is purporting to impeach Mrs. O'Keefe, who just testified, I never said that. I never said it. I never leaned over the island counter. Never happened. So bringing this in would be used to impeach their own witness. And that's what can't be done in Massachusetts. With regard to consciousness of guilt, how does my client reiterating or stating that something that the victim's mother may or may not have said, how does that relate to consciousness of guilt? It doesn't. This is simply a wolf in sheep's clothing. They're trying to get it in because it makes my client look bad. They just put on a very, very sympathetic and empathetic witness, John O'Keefe's mother, and they're trying to make my client, Ms. Reed, look bad by saying something what they perceive to be pejorative, in a tone that's pejorative about that very same witness. He's trying to, at this point, there is no issue about whether or not Peggy O'Keefe leaned over and said something about the car, being hit by the car. He's trying to create the issue so that he can put this video clip in. It has nothing to do with consciousness of guilt.
It's not for impeachment of Peggy O'Keefe. We don't take the position that Peggy O'Keefe is lying. This is a statement of the defendant. It's in the form of an admission or a statement, which qualifies for admission substantively, not for impeachment purposes. The defendant should not be able to pick and choose which of her statements do not look good for her and do not look bad for her. She made the statements that are relevant to this case. It's not unfairly prejudicial. It's a statement that they embraced and they chose and they publicized, and it goes directly to the issue of consciousness of guilt. Just because it hurts, just because it's incriminating, just because it's difficult for the defense is not a basis to preclude it. It is an admission, a statement of the defendant. It's admitted substantively.
If that were true, Your Honor, then they would simply put in the transcript. They wouldn't need to play the video. Transcript is one line. And his mother leans over the kitchen island and says to me, I think he looks like he got hit by a car. He looks like he got hit by a car. Sorry. I think he looks like he got hit by a car. It looks like he got hit by a car. They just put that statement in. They want to play this because of its prejudice, because of the tone that it sets. It's not an evidence at this point. The witness who supposedly said the statement has denied having said it and said it never occurred. This is far, far more prejudicial than it is probative. If they don't simply use the transcript, that's one thing. But playing this video is simply being used to vilify my client because of the tone of voice she used in the clip. That's it. That's what's not allowed. That's overly prejudicial, and it's not relevant.
All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to think about this. And if I decided to let it in, you can let it in first thing tomorrow morning. I'm not going to let it in now.
May I ask for a ruling in the morning?
Yes,
May I introduce the one that was not objected to?
yes. Do you want a consciousness of guilt instruction, Mr. Jackson?
No, we don't believe that
So you're in agreement that that statement just comes in?
we're not objecting. I'm not trying to introduce it. Don't put words in my mouth. I'm not trying to.
No, I
introduce
said
it.
you're,
But-
okay.
But I'm not objecting that it, at this point, that it should come in.
Okay. We'll bring the jurors back and we'll do that. Tony, can they come right in or is it going to be 5 minutes? Can they come right in?
She's being very cautious here. And basically, it's because of the terms that Alan Jackson used.
Yeah.
He clearly said
Put this under
probative
consideration and just admit the other one? is
Yes, and
considered?
give it to me
prejudice.
so I can look at it.
That
please.
is her concern, to make sure it's not too prejudicial.
So I'm sorry, Your Honor, do you want me to leave that on there so you can look at it tonight? And if we decide to take it off in the morning?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Because you can just single it out and play one, right?
It'll be over in a moment.
Okay, thank you. Chrissy.
Yeah, exactly. Don't. Yeah. This judge, whether the people on the socials want to admit it or not, is very even and actually very pro-defense. She takes a strong line on defendants being able to have the freedom to present their case and to make sure they get a fair trial. Point in reference would be in regards to the sanctions and how she felt that Karen Reed's defense team had actually lied to the court, misrepresented information, and it was damning and the wrong thing to do, and was going to be, something that had to be dealt with probably after the case. But because Karen wanted to keep them on, she wants her to get a fair trial. And Karen had to waive her rights to appeal, to overturn the verdict or anything that happens based on bad counsel, because she had been notified and it was put on the record by Judge Cannone of this incident and that she was advised. Are we taking another break? Oh no, we're bringing the jury in. Sorry. Yeah. I got confused. Hello, fan. I'm a fan. Do you think I'll still be saying that in 2 weeks when we're still here at trial? I don't think so. You're right, Liam. The tone all comes from Karen. And just actually watching her tone and seeing her face actually makes that statement so much worse. And I think that the defense acknowledges that. They don't want it in. This is going to be a battle throughout this whole trial because Hank Brennan, he's taken that consciousness of guilt seriously. And he got all of these interviews entered because of it.
Hey,
Yes, please.
Your Honor, I'd like to introduce clip number 4.
They had pulled into the driveway before me, so I was presuming she saw my cracked tail light and was thinking, did you hit my son? I could sense from her that she was looking at me very warily. And then when John's nephew came home, I just wanted to see him and squeeze him. It was quite uncomfortable. I sit down upstairs to the master bedroom. I said, I think I need to leave. I said, I think John's mother thinks I did something to John.
May I call my next witness, Your Honor?
Please.
The Commonwealth calls Nicholas Guarino.
That would be witness number 4.
courtroom, please.
Do you solemnly swear the evidence you give to the court and jury in the case now and here and should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thanks. You can take it.
Hi, stand or sit, however you're most comfortable,
Thank
okay?
you, Your Honor.
May I proceed?
Yes.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Yes. My name is Nicholas Guarino.
Mr. Guarino, where do you work?
I work at the Massachusetts State Police at the Norfolk District Attorney's Office.
How long have you worked for the Massachusetts State Police for?
This is year 10 now.
How long have you been assigned to the District Attorney's Office for?
Since November of 2019, so 5-ish years, 6 years.
I want to go backwards a little bit. Can you tell me a little bit about what you did before you began working for the Massachusetts State Police?
Yes, sir. I was a Norwood police officer for almost 11 years.
So how long have you been in law enforcement between being a Norwood police officer and a Massachusetts State Police officer?
February of this year started my 20th year in law enforcement.
Did you go to school before you became a law enforcement officer?
Yes, I went to Westfield State College, Westfield State University now.
Did you graduate?
Yes, I did.
Can you remember what year you graduated in?
Yes, it was 2003.
Did you have a particular degree from Westfield State?
Yes, I double majored. I got a major in criminal justice and mass communications.
When you began as a police officer with the Norwood Police Department, did you have to go into any type of specific training?
Yes, I went to the police academy.
And how long is the police academy?
6 months.
Generally and briefly, what was taught at the academy?
How to conduct investigations, respond to calls. They did a standard field sobriety testing week, physical training, Massachusetts law and criminal procedure.
When you began as a Norwood police officer, were you a patrol officer?
Yes, I was.
And did you remain a patrol officer for the 10 or 11 years you were there?
Yes, I was also part-time in the detail office, but
What does that mean?
handling jobs when we're off. So filling details like road construction, I'm sorry.
When you left Norwood and began working with the Massachusetts State Police, based on your prior training, did you have to go through further training or were you ready to just begin?
No, I had to go to the State Police Academy for 6 months.
After you got out of the State Police Academy, were you assigned to a barracks?
Yes, I was assigned to the South Boston Barracks for my training. And then once my break-in training was done, I was assigned to the Holden Barracks near Worcester.
At some point during your time, your career with the Massachusetts State Police, did you start to receive any type of training in the specific field?
I'm sorry.
Did you receive any specialized training at the Massachusetts State Police after the academy?
Once I got into the district attorney's office, yes.
And can you tell us a little bit about what type of specialized training you received when you were assigned to the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office?
Yes. So I was hired by the district attorney's office. I do cell phone and computer forensics, as well as I'm a sexual assault investigator. I had prior sexual assault investigator school done, and I went for digital forensics classes as part of my now daily duties.
In order to work with cell phone forensics, did you have any particular background in it at that point?
I had taken some classes when I was at Norwood PD, but I didn't have any of the Cellbrite or Axiom classes that I do now.
We'll talk about those in a minute so you can give a little more explanation. Did you ever receive a specific advanced degree in data forensics?
No, I didn't.
Did you ever receive any specialized further degree, a master's in data forensics?
No.
So your training came while you were a Massachusetts State Police officer through the Massachusetts State Police?
Yes, that's correct.
What type of courses did you take to learn about forensics?
The first one I took was Cellbrite certified CCO CCPA is their intro course that teaches you how to use the program and how to extract cell phones using Cellbrite program.
There's a couple words I want you to help us understand.
Yes.
The first is an extraction. What is, as simple as you can, a cell phone extraction?
Yes, quite literally is plugging the phone into specialized hardware or software, and it pulls the data from that device to make a digital copy of it, so that way we can load it up later to look at it.
So when you extract the phone through a download, it basically mimics the content of the phone, but it's in a different shell. It's in a different form than inside the actual phone itself.
Yes, exactly. That way we're not manipulating or changing any data while looking, because if we were to open the device, it would change data by going through the phone itself or computer.
When you plug it in, can you explain a little bit about what you're plugging it into?
Yes, so the main program and hardware that we use is GrayKey. It is, again, specialized software and hardware that once the phone's plugged into it, the software is able to extract the information if we have the passcode. If we don't have the passcode and the phone is supported, it's able to guess that passcode depending on how long, like for an iPhone, if you have a 4-digit, it could take months. If you have a 6-digit, it could take up to 35 years.
So does the phone have to be accessible to actually do that download through GrayKey? Do you have to be able to open the phone with the passcode?
No, so if we don't have the passcode and it's supported, it can guess the passcode without making the phone useless after, say, for an iPhone, I believe it's 10 passcodes.
Is it a quicker process if you do have the passcode?
Much. It would take hours to download the device, depending on how much information's on it.
How do you ensure that the information that you extract from the actual device is accurate and the same when you're making a copy? How do you ensure the integrity of it?
So with GrayKey, it produces a progress report as it goes through its process. The only 2 fields that we can sort of amend in that PDF that it spits out is the ID number and then the investigator name. So after the data is pulled out, it creates a hash value, which is like a digital fingerprint for that specific information. So if you had gone in and to edit or change it, that digital fingerprint would change. It would change the big long string of numbers that it attaches to that file.
The digital fingerprint, is that the same thing you're referring to as the hash value?
Yes, exactly.
And how do you ensure that the hash value of the product, the copy, is the same as what's on the phone?
You can run the zip file that it creates with the information into a hash calculator, and it will give the same hash as what is produced from the GrayKey PDF report. So if something had changed or there was an error with it, the hash would not be the same as what was given from the PDF. And that's how we know that the data is not the same.
So if you download a phone and it has a hash value, this digital fingerprint, and then someone was to manipulate the phone and remove anything, even a period, from that data, if it's run again, will the hash value change?
Yes, it would not be the same because
Even
it
if
will
it's
show.
just, I'm sorry, even if it's just a period?
Yes, any alteration to that initial extraction with that number, it immediately would change.
So if you have an item, a computer or a phone, and you put it through the GrayKey program, and you do an extraction, a copy, where do you store that copy of information if it's not on the phone that you originally have? What do you do with it?
So once the program pulls that information, we have to place it onto our secure server at the office, and we'll take any of the files that were given via the extraction process, and it's saved there for us.
And so you copy it on another link or another digital file?
Yes, we'll save it to the server at the district attorney's office.
Can it be put on a physical item, like a zip drive or a hard drive?
Yes.
If you put that download onto a zip drive or hard drive, how will you know if that information on the hard drive matches the same information you originally downloaded from the phone to the server through GrayKey?
Again, like I said, you could run the hash value of that file again to correlate it with the PDF that we were given once GrayKey has given us the information. So that's how you would know all the information is the same, nothing has changed.
So for example, if you download an iPhone and it has that digital fingerprint hash value attached to it, and you make a copy or multiple copies, is the way to test whether or not those copies are exactly accurate is to look at the hash value of each copy?
Yes, and copying the zip file would not change the hash value. The only way it would change is if you physically went into it and deleted information somehow.
So now that you have the item, say for example, an iPhone, and you've downloaded it through Gray Key, which is hardware and software, and it's on a digital file, can you just open it up and start reading it like a report or a book, or do you have to do something else to it?
No, once it's pulled into that zip file, it has to be opened into another program, which there are many forensic tools, but the ones at the office we use are Cellbrite or Axiom. They're two brands, and then those programs make that information readable so we can actually look at it.
So if you were to download a forensic copy and you were to open it up without using that subsequent software, would you be able to read or see anything that's on that data?
To be honest, I don't know because I've never opened one of those zip files to know what's actually in them.
After the extraction happens, after there's that copy made, did you mention this further software you would use to be able to actually read the data?
Yes, so that's Cellbrite and Axiom. They're two different programs, but those programs will make the information readable.
Are those the programs that you typically use?
Yes, they are. And there's other programs out there, but those are the two that we normally use at the office.
Are they commonly used in the Massachusetts State Police?
Yes, they are.
Are there other programs beyond Axiom and Cellbrite that can be used to decipher the information so you can read it?
Yes, there's many.
In your entire time with the Massachusetts State Police, have you used any other programs other than Axiom or Cellbrite?
To look at cell phones?
Yes.
We have Sanderson forensic software that can look at databases that are in the phone to look at information. I don't normally use those because I don't want to say, I'm probably not proficient enough that I would know this exactly means this, or I wouldn't want to confuse anything that I'm looking at.
When you look at the information after it's been through the extraction and then the analysis through the software, is the data still available if you want to look into the data?
From the zip file itself, sir?
Yes.
Yes, that's always available. It's, like I said, the data in the zip file that Gray Key gives us is never changed. It's just being loaded into another program so we can see it. That's all.
The software that you use, whether it's Cellbrite or Axiom, does that do the work for you as a forensic examiner?
Yes, so it runs, as the program runs, I should say, it will bring up different tabs. So it'll say phone calls, chats, photos, the databases, all different things that Cellbrite, their software, has run to pull this information out to make it easier for investigators to find what they're looking for.
Beyond the initial report that you can look at and look for the information, if you wanted to as a data forensic examiner, could you look deeper beyond the production of those software programs?
Yes, you could.
Forensic data analysis, when you look at these tools that provide these initial reports, is that the beginning or does it dig deeper when you're a digital forensic analyst?
No, these reports are finding the low-hanging fruit in the proverbial tree. So it's showing you the stuff that the program is set that most people are looking for. As I said, the phone calls, the chats. If you need to go deeper into it, as I said, there's other software out there where you can pull these databases and try to go through the code to find what you're looking for. Once you find something, you would have to corroborate it with other evidence or data to make sure what you're looking at is exactly what you're looking for.
Have you been involved in the download, extraction, and analyzing data on phones as your role with the Massachusetts State Police?
Yes, that's my primary role in the DA's office currently.
And how many years have you been in that role?
Since November of 2019, so 5 years now.
Have you worked on a number of different cases that involve forensic data?
Yes, I have.
Is there a routine or a practice in your present role when you make a copy about what process you use and how you produce it in a case?
I wouldn't say there's a normal process. It's all case dependent. A lot of cases we get, people want PDFs of the information, portable cases that we can create. So it's basically the portable program that I'm using. That way someone could find the information they're looking for, or I give the raw information if requested.
What's the difference between PDF form and raw information?
So Cellbrite can create a PDF form of every bit of information in the phone. It could be like a 10,000 page PDF. It literally just lists everything that's in there. If I create a portable case, as I said, that is basically like me giving you the thumb drive, and it's showing you exactly what I'm seeing, and you can click on the tabs yourself from your own computer. And then if I give the raw file, that means someone has to go in and load it themselves to look for it.
Typically, when you are producing evidence of discovery in a case, do you produce PDF or the raw file?
As I said, it's all case dependent. Not all cases have forensic experts to come in to look at the information. So I'll supply whatever is requested. Normally the PDF or the portable case is what I give, but if more is requested, that's readily available.
And so the raw data, if requested, do you provide that as well?
Yes, if requested.
In this case, were you involved in any type of forensic data extraction?
Yes, I did the extractions of multiple phones and analyzed multiple phones in this case.
You mentioned that there's a software and hardware, the gray key unit. Where's that located?
That's located in the digital forensics laboratory, which is key card access and alarmed. Excuse me, at the Norfolk DA's office.
Are there other cases or the multiple cases that are occurring at the same time?
Yes, we constantly have phones coming in and out and being worked on.
What if you have a phone and the gray key unit's being used? What do you need to do?
We need to wait for that phone to finish, because if we say we unplugged it, it would interrupt that data transfer and we could lose it. So we wait until the phone's done and then the next phone goes up.
Did you become involved in some way in this case?
Downloading devices, sir?
Well, I'm asking generally for.
Oh, yes, sorry, yes.
Were you involved in investigating this case as far as speaking to witnesses or going to the scene?
No.
Can you describe the best you can what your role was relative to this case?
Yes, so I was brought, as I said, phones from this case to have the data extracted and then have it ready in our Cellbrite program for the investigators to look at.
At some point, were you provided a phone that you later identified as a phone belonging to Mr. John O'Keefe?
Yes, I was.
Do you remember when you were provided that phone?
Yes, it was January 29th, 2022, about 7:30 p.m. that night.
Do you remember where you received that phone from?
Yes, I was at the DA's office. I got it from Sergeant Buchanan and Michael Proctor.
Do you remember about what time of night that was?
As I said, about 7 to 7:30 p.m.
Thank you. When you received that phone, did you have the passcode?
No, we didn't.
Without the passcode, what were your next steps?
So the phone was placed in our digital forensics lab until we could get the passcode. I was told that a family member was going to be bringing it in so we could download the device.
Did you ultimately get that passcode?
Yes, we did.
And do you remember when you received it?
January 31st, 2022.
After you received the passcode for Mr. O'Keefe's phone, can you walk us through the process of what you did?
Yep. So once the passcode's obtained, we'll unlock the phone and then plug it into Gray Key, and then it's able to pull the full information from it without having to guess the passcode.
How long does that take?
Again, depending on the size of the phone, a few hours.
After the information was downloaded, then what happened?
We place on our digital evidence server at the DA's office, and then if the phone is evidence, it would go into evidence. If it was a consent, we'd give it back to the person who gave it to us immediately.
Did this phone go into evidence?
Yes, it did.
When you downloaded the information through Gray Key, which you said was the hardware and software, does it produce a report with that digital imprint?
Yes, it does. It produces a report from the time you plug it in to the process it completes, and then the amount of data, and then, like I said, that digital fingerprint hash value at the end.
And did you do that with this phone, Mr. O'Keefe's
Yes,
phone? May
I
I
did.
approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Highlight. I'm going to show you a document, sir.
Okay, sorry. Yes, thank you.
I'm sorry.
Did you show it to Mr. Alessi?
I'm sorry. My apologies. Sorry. Yeah,
Yes.
I'm showing you a document. Can you look at both pages, please?
Okay.
Do you recognize that document?
Yes, this is the,
I'll just
sorry.
ask you a couple more
Oh, sorry.
questions if you don't mind. What is it?
it's the Gray Key progress report that they give once the phone extractions are completed.
Do you recognize that as the report that is attributed to John O'Keefe's phone?
Yes,
And does that document have that digital imprint, the digital fingerprint that you were talking about?
yes. So it's in, yeah, so it's here on the back. I just want to see if it was in two places. But it would be here for the, sorry, it's got cut off,
Why
but,
don't I put it up for an exhibit so that we can show it together?
Okay.
I'll ask you some questions.
Okay.
I'd like to introduce this as an exhibit, please. No objection, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you.
Is it 18th of March?
May I show that exhibit to the jury? May I approach the witness to show him the pointer?
Yes.
On this top button will be the pointer, the middle button will change the screen, so
oh,
switch to the top button, please. Can you walk us through what this report means?
yep. So here at the top, here it is. Again, it says Gray Key progress report, and then it gives the report generation date and time, and it is in UTC, which is, get the exact definition, universal time coordinates, I believe. So you'd have to minus 4 or 5 hours depending on daylight savings time. So this one would have been January's -5. 16/10 will be 1 noon, 12 o'clock for the actual time on the 31st. As we go down, device name is Johnny. The software version is the Apple iOS that was running at the time. Model number, iPhone 11. And then if you were to look up the N104AP is also a model number. The unique device ID. This one is what Gray Key assigns to the zip file that it creates. Serial number of the phone, the unique chip ID, the Wi-Fi address, the Bluetooth address, and then the phone number. And then there's more information underneath.
Could we scroll that, please? Thank you.
This here is the IMEI, which is the International Mobile Equipment Identifier. It's not uncommon now to have multiple of those identifying numbers. The data partition size of the device, which is 83 gigabytes. The lock state, if the phone was locked, it would say locked. This one is unlocked, so we had the passcode. This was the Gray Key agent version for the software. And then this is the last time that the phone was backed up via iTunes or iCloud. This is the owner's name, You can have anything in this, but his phone had John O'Keefe set as the iPhone owner name, and then the different accounts attributed to the phone.
Okay. Can you show us where the digital fingerprint is?
Yep, it's down. So that, the top part here is literally every time when it's plugged in to every process that it completes until the progress report is generated. Here is the full file system was created on this date and time. And then even though the partition size was 82 gigabytes, it actually pulled 125 gigabytes of data. Underneath this, if you're on the next page, is that unique fingerprints right here. So it has two, a SHA-256 and an MD5. They're just two versions of hashing to show that the file, they're unique fingerprints, and that's what these numbers are here. So there's one for the image of the extraction, and then one for the keychain for the other documents that Gray Key creates.
And you mentioned that if anything has changed, even the period, that number and letter sequence will change as well?
Yes, that's exactly right.
Did you have an opportunity to download and extract any other phones?
Yes,
At some point, did you have an opportunity to download and extract a phone from the defendant?
yes, I did.
Do you remember when you received that phone?
I got the phone the same time as I got Mr. O'Keefe's phone on the 29th at around 7:30 at night.
And so you received both phones at the same time
Yes,
from the same people?
correct.
Trooper Buchanan,
Yes,
Trooper Proctor.
yes.
What did you do with that phone?
Again, that was brought down to the digital forensics lab for holding until we could get into it, or a warrant was written, or whatever legal process was going to be done, so we could get that information.
Do you secure it?
Yes, that room is locked with keycard access that only myself and two others have, and it's also alarmed.
Do the case officers or investigators that aren't part of your unit have access to those items?
No, the only ones that had access were myself, Trooper Connor Keefe, and then the director, Samantha Vogt. She's a civilian that runs our lab.
And at that point, were you able, after there was process, were you able to get into the phone at first?
No, it wasn't supported by Gray Key, the phone model and number.
What do you mean it wasn't supported?
So the software, even if we had a search warrant, we plugged it in, Gray Key wouldn't be able to recognize it because it just wasn't supported at that time.
When you say it wasn't supported, does this have anything to do with a passcode?
For both. So we didn't have the passcode. So because we didn't have it, it wasn't supported for us to download that information from the device.
If you had a passcode, would it have been supported?
Yes, it would have been.
So is there a process when you have a phone that you don't have a passcode for to be able to access the content of the phone?
Yes, that's correct. We have to wait until we either have the passcode or the software and hardware is supported for the device where it can try to guess the passcode.
So let me ask you some questions about software. In forensic data analysis, does software change frequently?
Constantly.
When the software changes, does it advance?
Does the software get better?
Yes.
Yes, it does.
At the time you first had the defendant's phone, the software you had was unable to access the contents?
That is correct.
What do? Do you look for other software or do you wait for updates? What's the process?
If there is another software out there, we will use it to try to get the information. If not, we are at the mercy of waiting for the developers to come up with the information for us.
Did you wait in this case?
Yes, we did. We had to wait.
Ultimately, did software advance so that without a passcode, you were able to access?
Yes.
How long did you have to wait before you were able to access?
I believe it was July of 2022 that the software had been upgraded enough that it was able to brute force or guess her passcode for the device.
And where does the device remain until you're ready to try again?
In that locked digital forensics lab.
So when the software updates, and advances, do you know that it will be successful, or you plug it in and you try?
No, so on Gray Key, they have like a link where you can click and it brings up a whole matrix. So it shows every make, model of phone and then the software associated with it. And it says it can do a partial download, a full download, a password guess. And it tells us, so when there's a new update, we'll check that to make sure that the devices we have can be accessed.
Did you make an attempt to have the software access the phone without a passcode?
Objection, Your Honor. Move the approach, please.
Sorry about that. Oh, damn. I think did Nick lose the towing cost? Yep. Okay, another. Ay. I do like the way he explained the extraction. What legal will be crossing this week? Yes, Alessi. It means we might be here till tomorrow. Unfortunately, Robert Alessi is not actually able to get to a point without at least 1,000 words. I'm going on record and saying it. She didn't give her passcode. We're back. Oh, yeah. So here's the strategy. Robert Alessi is always on the data. Alan Jackson is always on witness frustration, like the one that tries to pick apart the testimony. And Yannetti is usually the smoother. I don't know what he'll be this time.
Thank you. Did you use software inevitably to open the defendant's phone?
Yes.
And how many times did you download?
So there were 2 downloads. One, thank you. One of the partial part of the phone, and then we, in the same time that we had it plugged in, we had the password brute force guess software installed onto the phone, so we would try to guess the passcode. So there were 2 downloads, one with very limited data, and then one with the full file system extraction, which is everything on the phone that it can get.
May I approach?
Yes.
I'm going to show you 2 documents, sir.
Yes.
Did you need a copy? Do you have an extra copy of the book? I'm going to show you 2 documents that actually, the first one, do you recognize that document?
Yes, I do.
Is that a result summary from Gray Key for a search of the defendant's phone?
This is the initial extraction that we created before the password guess process went through.
I'd like to introduce this as the next exhibit, please.
No objection, Your Honor.
That's the original.
Yes, this is the first one.
Thank you.
Yep.
Exhibit 19.
I showed you a second document. Do you recognize that?
Yes, this is essentially the same information, except it goes further of all the password guess attempts longer until we actually get all of the information from the phone.
I'd like to introduce this as the next exhibit, please.
No objection, Mr. Alessi?
No objection, Your Honor.
20. Somewhere.
have the previous exhibit as well, please?
I might have been. I might have been.
Sir, I'm handing you back Exhibit 19, which was the partial download.
Okay.
Exhibit 20, which was the subsequent download. You mentioned hash value changes with the content of each download.
Yes.
Is there hash values specifically assigned to each download?
Yes, there is.
Are they the same number and digits in digital fingerprint?
No, they're not.
And explain again why they would be different.
Again, the first one was the partial. It was only 45 gigabytes of data. So it has one number. The second download was 109 gigabytes of data once it got the passcode. And again, that number is completely different again. And again, like I said, the information is not the same, so the hash values won't be the same.
Were the two other phones that you inevitably analyzed?
Yes, there were.
Let's start with the first one. Did you have an opportunity to create a file on a phone that came from Kerry Roberts?
Yes, I did.
Now, you said it's a two-step process. First is the extraction, the copying, and then it's creating the file.
That's exactly right.
With Kerry Roberts' phone, did you make the extraction? Did you plug it into the gray key?
No, I didn't.
Who did?
Trooper Connor Keefe.
How do you know Trooper Keefe?
He went to meet with Kerry Roberts, received the device from her. He brought it back to the office and did the extraction. His name is also on the extraction gray key progress reports as well. And he wrote 2 state police reports regarding it.
Do you work with Connor Keefe?
Yes.
He works with, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I would say we do the same, essentially the same job working together.
So he's in your unit,
Yes, he is.
in the digital forensic unit.
That's correct.
That phone, did it come with any paperwork, any forms?
Yes, he had 2 signed waivers of consent from both parties for each device, one for each device.
And so as far as the copying, the extraction, you did not do the extraction on Kerry Roberts' phone?
No, I did not.
After it was plugged in and a copy was made, did you then access it?
Months down the road.
Were you assigned at that point to analyze or look at any of the data on that phone?
Initially, no.
At some point, did you create a file so that you could provide it to the parties?
Yes, I did.
Was that upon request?
Yes, it was.
And separately, did you know, or did you, let me ask it a different way. Was a phone from Jennifer McCabe extracted?
Yes, it
No.
was.
Did you do the extraction?
No, I did not.
Was the information after extracted again provided to a digital file?
It would have been, yes.
Did you, at some point later, did you make a copy to provide to the parties?
Yes, I did.
Can you tell us what a USEF reader is?
So the UFED reader is a portable case that I can create through Cellbrite. Again, like I said, it's the exact same program that I would be viewing if I was sitting at my desktop, and said it can be made into a thumb drive to give to defense, prosecution, investigators, whoever. And there's no chance for the data to be manipulated because it's just a reader.
When you have the digital file that's been extracted and then created into a PDF or a form that can be read, can you print the entire file on paper if you'd like?
Yes, you could.
Would that include, could you print it so it includes the entire content of the phone?
Yes, it would be thousands of pages, but yes, you could.
Is there any way to isolate particular things of interest that you might want? For example, if you wanted just the chats between 2 people, is there a way that you could have a program isolate just those chats and then give you all of them in a form that you could read?
Yes, so you can go in to cherry pick whatever information you're looking for to create into PDFs or other, it gives 5, I think, different mediums. You can have it output HTML, portable cases, XML files.
If you wanted to create a a document that had a number of people in communications, could you do that as well?
Yes, you could.
So you can pretty much set the parameters how you want if you want to search for particular items.
Yes, it's very generous that way of being able to search for keywords, phone numbers, whatever it is, and then you can export that out into a PDF so you can print it.
May I have a moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
Okay. Did you go through the program and create a number of documents that isolated specific information that you wanted?
Yes,
For example, did you go through and create a report for all of John O'Keefe's calls for a period of time?
yes, I did.
Did you go through the program and create a report for all of the calls between John O'Keefe and the defendant for a period of time?
Yes, I did.
Did you go through the program and create a specific document that would show just the text messages between John O'Keefe and the defendant?
Yes, I did.
Did you go through the phone and create specific separate documents for communications, phone calls and text messages between Mr. O'Keefe and other people, not the defendant?
Yes,
For example, Ms. Roberts,
yes, that's correct.
Ms. McCabe.
Yep.
Did you go through any of the phones and create documents to show any text or conversation between parties not involving John O'Keefe?
If directed, I could, but I don't believe I did.
When you took on the task of creating these documents, was it something you did on your own or something that you would wait for a request from a prosecutor or another officer?
I would wait for a request. Again, my knowledge of most of the cases is very, very limited. So if they're looking for something specific, I can assist them. If they need some type of help, I can assist them. But normally I will open it up for them and they have a better knowledge of the case, so they know what they're going to be looking for. Everyone in our office is Cellbrite trained. Or if someone new comes in, that's the first thing they'll go to is to a Cellbrite training, so they know how to use this program. And it doesn't put the burden on myself and Trooper Keefe to try to find everything for every case.
Thank you. Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to conclude this witness's testimony to be recalled again.
You're in agreement with that, Mr. Alessi?
We are, Your Honor,
Okay.
subject to the recall.
Okay. All right, Trooper, you're all set.
Thank you, Your Honor.
We'll see you again.
Should I?
You could just leave them right.
Thank you.
Okay, so Alessi is not crossing right now, but they are going to bring him back.
Do you have another witness, Mr. Brennan?
May I?
Yes, please.
Commonwealth calls Mr. Whitley.
Mr. Whitley. Just noting for the record, we're definitely going to hear from Nicholas Guarino again. Number 5.
Do you solemnly swear the evidence given to the court and jury in the case now hearing to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. Thank you.
May I?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir, could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Hello, my name is Daniel Whitley, Whitley. I'm a paramedic with the Canton Fire Department. I've been a paramedic and firefighter there since March of 2006.
Okay.
Before you became a paramedic firefighter with the Canton Fire Department, did you work anywhere else related to that field?
Yes, I had 4 years full-time as a EMT intermediate, and also a paramedic at American Medical Response in Brockton.
I'd like to take us right to January 29, 2022.
Yes.
Do you remember that day?
Yes.
Were you working?
Yes.
What was your role that day?
I was a field training officer working on the ambulance with my partner, Jason Becker.
Mr. Becker?
Correct.
That morning, did you know whether there was a call where a group of your colleagues went to and addressed 34 Fairview?
Yes.
Were you accompanying your colleagues on that initial call?
No.
Where were you at the time your colleagues left to go to that location?
I was at the Station 2, Ponkapog Station on the north side of town.
Different station?
Correct.
At some point after that call came in and was responded to you, did you receive a call?
Sometime after, I'm not quite sure exactly how soon or later it was, but we received another call to respond to that scene.
And as a result of receiving that call, did you make your way towards that location?
Yes.
Who did you go there with?
Just me and my partner at that time was Jason Becker.
What type of vehicle did you use to get there?
It was an ambulance.
What was the weather like?
It was snowing pretty heavily at that point.
Do you know about how long it took you to get to 34 Fairview?
Not exactly, but definitely longer than usual. It should have been an 8-minute drive. I'm guessing 10 to 12 minutes. You could refer to my partner's report for exacts.
When you got there, what did you see?
We arrived on scene. Our engine was there before we run on a response with an engine and an ambulance to medical calls. And then at least 2 police cruisers and another car parked on the street, a gray SUV.
When you got there, did you meet with anybody?
Yeah, usually we get out, we say hi to my lieutenant and the other gentleman, Sam Parker, was on the engine before we got there. They were up front of where we parked, and then we walked down further, or at least I did, to the gray SUV.
When you reached the gray SUV, did you see anybody inside it?
I believe at that point we were kind of, getting out. We were walking down, they were coming out to greet us. There were 3 women there.
Okay. Did you speak to any of them in particular?
Not at that point, no, not really.
At some point, did you have any interaction with any of the women?
Yes.
In fact, did you know any of the women who were there that morning?
I knew Carrie Roberts.
How did you know Carrie Roberts?
First we're neighbors. She lives about 100, 200 yards away from me around the corner. And she helped organize a neighborhood block party, and I would volunteer every year to bring the fire truck to the block party and show the kids the fire truck for a little bit.
So you knew her well?
No.
Were you friends with her?
No.
Friendly?
I just would describe us as acquaintances.
Did you ever socialize with her personally, other than the block party?
No.
But you knew who she was?
I knew who she was. I don't recognize her, yes.
Did you talk to her that morning?
Not beyond probably a hey or hi or something like that.
Do you know whether she ever gave you any items?
I know at one point I had to exchange whether it was a purse or a cell phone or some object from Miss Reed.
At some point that morning, did you have an opportunity to meet with the defendant?
Yes.
Where did you first see her?
We were in the process of getting her to go to the hospital.
When you say we, who was helping you?
That would be, my partner, obviously, Jason Becker, and then my lieutenant, Greg Woodbury.
Where was she when you first saw her?
Somewhere outside in the street.
Do you recognize her in the courtroom today?
I do.
And could you identify her, please?
Yes.
Please. You're pointing to a person. Can you give just a very limited?
The woman standing, sitting in between these 2 gentlemen here.
Did you interact with her that morning? Have a conversation?
Yes.
When you first started speaking to her, what was her demeanor?
Pretty upset, crying. we had a Section 12 in hand, which is a medical order or a police order to be taken to the hospital for psychological evaluation.
Did you discuss that with her?
Yes. Yeah.
Did you ask her to follow you or to come with you?
Yeah, she did.
And did that happen?
To the ambulance, correct.
So you went to the ambulance with the defendant?
Yeah.
And was Mr. Becker with you?
Yes.
What happens when you get to the ambulance?
I mean, so it was snowing, and it was more to kind of just get everybody into a nice, warmer location where it wasn't snowing or windy or anything like that. And we would discussing that, we have a Section 12 that states we have, regardless of if you want to go, we have to take you to the hospital. She was arguing that she really didn't need to go to the hospital, and we were trying to convince her to go to the hospital because once the Section 12 is written, it doesn't matter what the patient says. We have to get them there one way or the other, whether it's cooperatively restrained or chemically restrained with sedatives or anything.
It's not a voluntary order?
It is not a voluntary order.
Inevitably, did the defendant agree to go with you to the hospital?
Yes.
When you were going to return to the hospital, was the defendant placed in the back of the ambulance where a patient would be?
So how we operate for anybody that's a Section 12 or anybody that is under the influence of anything, we always operate with two people in the back of the ambulance. So myself and my partner, Jason Becker, were back there. And then we had to take somebody from the engine company and have them drive to the hospital, and that was Sam Bach.
Sam Bach?
Bach, B-O-C-H.
Thank you. Before you started to drive away from Fairview, were you having any conversations with the defendant?
Yes.
Can you share with the jury what those conversations were about?
So we were talking. She was upset. She kept asking if there was any chance her husband could be alive, and even sitting outside in the snow with no coat on for many hours.
Did she indicate what many hours meant? How many?
No.
How often did she raise the issue of whether or not or how long he could be out for?
I'd say at least 3 to 4, maybe more.
Part of your job is to care for patients?
Correct, yes.
Was part of your job to try to get them to the location safely?
Yes.
And sometimes you treat patients with physical injuries, don't you?
Oftentimes it is physical injuries, yes.
Are you trained when you're trying to transport somebody on how to interact with them?
Yes. Well, sometimes if they're upset, in this instance, she kept asking if there was any chance that he could be alive, and that we really didn't know what was the patient that ambulance 1 took. We really didn't know what his condition was, and but figuring that it was a hypothermia type case, being the conditions outside, we were trying to give her hope that there is a saying in the medical field, you're not dead until you're warm and dead. And I was basically, there's stories of children falling through ice and falling into rivers and being underwater for multiple hours and coming out, being resuscitated and having no neurological deficits. So I was telling her those stories just kind of to say, look, let's be sure we'll get to the hospital. We'll find out more there. Just trying to give her any sort of hope that her husband would be alive.
Can you describe her demeanor when she was in the back of the ambulance with you during your interactions with her?
She would go from pretty upset, crying. One instance where she kept saying, I can't take care of these kids. I can't take care of these kids. They're not my kids, and they're not his kids. And at that point, I understood who ambulance 1 had taken. because John was pretty well known in the town for taking on the care of his niece and nephew. So I said, listen, it's okay. It looks like you have a very strong support system. And then Miss Reed said, do you know Carrie Roberts? And she had been crying. And she picked her head up and said, do you know Carrie Roberts? And I said, a matter of fact, I do. And she said, anybody who knows Carrie Roberts wouldn't say that about her. And I said, well, she did come to out at early in the morning to look for your husband in a blizzard. And she just rolled her eyes and put her head back down. And I thought it was just bizarre.
Objection, move to strike.
I'll strike that last sentence.
Would you describe her demeanor as even through that ride?
No.
How long did it take to get to the hospital?
I mean, you can refer to my partner's ambulance trip report. I'm sure it has the.
Do you have it right with you, sir?
I do not know.
Well, let me ask you.
I would guess about 15 to 20 minutes, somewhere in there.
You don't have an exact memory?
No.
When you get to the hospital with a patient under these circumstances, do you leave them at the door?
No.
What do you do?
We have to hand off care. So we go in and we have to give a report to a nurse to let them know what their condition is, why they're coming to the hospital, and what we found taking them to the hospital.
When you got to the hospital with Miss Reed, did you interact with the hospital personnel?
Yes.
Do you typically, after you hand off a patient to staff, do you leave?
Typically, yes. This time, Miss Reed was, I'm going to say, not really cooperative with the nurse there. The nurse was asking her to get into a Johnny, give a urine sample. She was not cooperative. The nurse tried to work with her, had an ER tech go and ask the doctor if she had to get into a Johnny. She came back. She said, yes, she's a patient. She has to do all the normal stuff. We really didn't feel comfortable actually leaving the general area. I don't know if it was just shift change or what, but security wasn't there. And with her demeanor, we just didn't feel comfortable leaving the nurse by herself with Miss Reed.
You said that there was some difficult times. Was there some difficulty about the defendant accepting wearing a Johnny?
Yes, she was refusing to get into the Johnny, and the nurse kept saying, well, you got to get into this Johnny. The nurse did try to work with her and asked the doc if.
Objection.
I'll allow that.
And so the ER tech had to come back and say, yes, she has to get into the Johnny. And at that point she did. She seemed to have calmed down and was getting into the Johnny. Security personnel had shown up, and we felt comfortable being able to kind of leave the nurse and the tech on their own.
Before security came, was there difficulty in her providing a urine sample?
Objection.
Do you know the answer to that?
Can you ask the question again? I'm sorry.
Why don't you ask it a little differently?
Sure. Do you remember whether she was giving the nurses a hard time about a urine sample?
Yes.
Objection.
So break that down, Mr. Brennan. The objection is sustained.
You said that she was giving nurses a hard time.
She didn't want to give a urine sample. And then the nurses kept asking her to, this is the cup, you pee in the cup.
Objection. Last one.
No, I'm going to allow it.
You were there and saw this, right?
I saw it, yes.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
Yes.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Sir, you knew before you got into ambulance 2 that you were heading to Fairview Road for what is called a Section 12, correct?
We were dispatched for a Section 12, correct?
Right. And that was not your first call for a Section 12, right?
No.
You had been in that job since 2006?
Yes.
You've handled a number of them over the years, correct?
Correct.
the fact that the call came in as a Section 12 gave you some idea of the nature of the issue that you might be dealing with, correct?
We had an idea that it was for a psychological issue. Correct.
Right. It told you that somebody at that location was suspected of being in some type of either psychiatric or emotional distress, correct?
Yes.
And on your crew, or of your crew, I should say, you were the one to drive the ambulance 2 to the residence, correct?
I drove to the address at
All right.
Fairview.
Now, you've said that when you got to Fairview Road, you don't recall the time, but you do recall that there were still emergency vehicles on scene, correct?
I do.
There was nobody lying in the front lawn of 34 Fairview at that time, correct?
Correct.
And do you know how much later after 6 a.m. you would have gone there?
You'd have to refer to my partner's report.
You don't know if it was minutes or hours?
It
later?
was minutes. It was within the hour. I don't know.
Within the hour,
Yep.
okay. And you said that there were, or you testified that there were 2 police vehicles on scene, correct?
At least 2.
At least 2. There could have been more than 2.
It certainly could have been.
And those police vehicles in such a situation, particularly with the snow falling down, would have had their blue lights flashing?
I'm not exactly sure if they did or they didn't. Sometimes the police shut off their lights when they arrive on scene. Sometimes they don't.
Okay, so you don't have a memory one way or the other.
No, nothing sticks out.
But those police vehicles certainly were not hidden. They were in plain view, correct?
I would say so.
Minimum of 2, maybe more. Correct?
Yes.
And there was also a gray SUV parked near that residence?
Correct.
And there was a fire engine there as well, correct?
Correct.
You called it our engine, right? That was from your
Well, it would be engine 3,
engine 3 from
or
your
at least
station.
the station 1 engine.
I'm sorry?
The station 1 engine.
I see.
So Canton Fire has 2 fire stations. We were coming from the second station. The station 1 engine is the one that responded to Fairview.
Okay, and that was a typical large fire engine, correct?
Yeah.
And did the fire engine have its lights on?
I assume it did, only because we rarely shut our lights off on a scene.
Sure. And there were police officers walking about, milling about?
Yes.
Do you know how many?
I know I spoke with Officer Sarif and Officer Mullaney,
Okay, and
so
were
at
there-
least 2.
And you know them by name?
Yeah, Canton's a fairly small town, so you run into the police on a regular basis.
Sure, and you work cooperatively with them, correct?
Yes.
Were there other police officers besides Sarif and Mullaney?
I'm sure there could have been, but I don't recall ever speaking with them or interacting with them.
Okay. Were there other EMTs or firefighters there when you got there?
Just my Lieutenant Woodbury, and then firefighter Sam Park.
Okay, and they were in charge of engine 1?
Well, the station 1 engine.
The station 1 engine? Okay. And there were also civilians on scene, correct?
Correct.
So you would agree that there was a lot of activity outside 34 Fairview, correct?
There's a fair amount of activity.
I mean, there were people and vehicles and lights surrounding that residence, correct?
I assume so, yes.
Well, you were there, so you don't really have to assume, you know, right?
There was at least 2 police cruisers and a fire engine.
Right, and civilians,
And
and police officers, and firefighters, correct, and civilians.
Correct.
All right. With all of that activity outside 34 Fairview, did you ever see the homeowner come out of his house?
I wouldn't have known the homeowner.
Do you ever see anybody exit the house?
I was not focused on the house at all.
All right. You were there to do a job, correct?
I was there to take somebody to the hospital.
Right. And you were there also to do a medical or psychiatric assessment while you were on scene, correct?
Well, yes, my partner was. Correct.
All right. When you got there, you learned, well, I have to strike that. You knew going there that your patient would have been Karen Reed, correct?
No.
Okay. When you got there, you learned your patient was to be Karen Reed, correct?
Yes.
All right. And given the nature of the call, you knew when you arrived that you would be transporting her to the hospital, correct?
Correct.
One of the first things that you tried to do was to get a medical history from her, correct?
Or my partner.
All right. And you were present for that, correct?
I may or may not have been.
Getting a medical history is important so that you can pass along information to the hospital when you eventually arrive there with the patient, correct?
Yes.
And you know that when assessing and treating somebody, getting more information is always better than getting less information, correct?
Not necessarily.
Okay, so there are times when you'd like to get less information from a patient before you transport them?
So it would be pertinent information. For instance, if somebody was complaining of chest pain and they had, stents placed in their heart, we wouldn't talk about how they had their tonsils removed when they were 12.
Okay, fair enough. But getting more information is not going to negate the crucial information that you do get, correct?
I mean, it certainly could in a critical stage. If there was a critical patient, we wouldn't typically overburden passing off a report to a nurse or a doctor with non-pertinent information.
Okay, it's not your testimony that getting less information is always better than getting more information, is it?
I would say getting pertinent information is better than having.
That wasn't my question. My question was, is it your testimony that getting less information is always better than getting more information, sir?
I would not agree with that, no.
Okay, thank you. Now, the medical history that was taken from Ms. Reed listed her as having multiple
I'm gonna
sclerosis,
object, Your
right?
Honor.
I want to see it, please.
So basically, he's trying to get him to say that her talking non-stop about stuff that doesn't matter and just like being all erratic, that was actually good because they needed information to go to the hospital. I don't know. It is a bit of a slimy. He's trying to twist his words. The guy is saying, it's situational, obviously, depending on the case, and what do you guys think? I think she said that stuff about Carrie Roberts because Carrie Roberts was starting to look at her like she was crazy. Like when they were in the car and all, she even said to Jen McCabe, like, she's crazy. I think that Carrie Roberts has a no-nonsense effect in it. The more histrionics that Karen was doing, like Carrie Roberts being a really good friend of John O'Keefe, she just wasn't having it. She was like, can you just like stop? It's like, and I think that Karen realized that she was side-eyeing her already. Okay. Have you stopped? I don't even know where that was going, but I do know that Yannetti is the smoother. They know that this is a problem, that Karen was acting out of character, that there was an issue here. I mean, don't forget they were drinking so much the night before. I don't really expect her to have normal behavior in this situation, but she was over and above in many, many cases. No, we'll see. I really do feel for Mrs. O'Keefe, though. It had to be hard to take that stand. It is definitely, Liam, I agree. It is situation dependent, absolutely. Just like the first witness, the paramedic from the Canton Fire Department had to keep saying, but I was in the middle of life-saving procedures. Like, I was focused on what I was doing. Like, yeah, I heard this or yeah, I heard that, but it wasn't my primary focus. He had to keep reminding, everybody, like, hey, like, you can't be twisting this around. Like, that's not exactly what was going on. I'm not purposely trying to misrepresent anybody. Or the last thing on his mind was framing Karen Reed. Yeah, the quick, yeah, how would he know? Like, well, I know it's a small town and all, but not everybody knows everybody. And you have to remember the body was found towards the curb. They're not necessarily associating it with the homeowner. If you look at where it was, the next house is just as like it could have been the house to the left, the house to the right. Yes, it was on their property. Well, very close to the curb. It looks like it's some kind of like why? Like why are they automatically focused on that house? Because it's convenient. Because they're also police officers. Basically, that was the only thing they had in common to go by at first. And then they get all the information that they were friends and they were going to be visiting there. There was going to be a party and that Karen had brought him there and he was going to go inside. Like they didn't have all that information at first. Exactly. Like what was it? Toast and jelly? Or just toast and butter? Or was it no toast at all? Just a yogurt. Yeah. They keep saying on the lawn, but it's a large area of land away from the houses and covered in snow. It is. And we're talking about one corner way, way over to one side near the curb.
Thank you. Sir, the medical testimony, history that your partner and you took from Ms. Reed listed that she suffered from multiple sclerosis, correct?
Correct.
And you know that that's a chronic disease of the central nervous system?
It's my understanding.
And what does chronic mean?
I believe any disease lasting more than a certain amount of time. It could be 2 years, 3 years, 4 years.
Persists for a long time or
Persistent.
constantly recurs?
Correct.
And it's a disease that affects neurological muscle control, correct?
That's my understanding.
And last question, it's also a progressive disease, which means it tends to get worse over time?
My understanding.
All right. Now, when you first interacted with Karen Reed after you got to 34 Fairview and encountered that whole scene, it was clear to you that a major focus for her was whether John O'Keefe was alive or dead, correct?
Correct.
Bless you. She asked if somebody could survive after having been found in the snow without a jacket, correct?
For many hours, correct.
All right. And you mentioned something about hypothermia that you assumed that you may have been dealing with a hypothermia situation from earlier, correct?
Well, she said that he had been out in the snow with no jacket on for many hours.
And you assumed hypothermia was your testimony, correct?
Yes.
You are not qualified to diagnose hypothermia, are you?
I'm not a doctor.
Okay. And you don't know if your assumption about hypothermia was correct or incorrect, correct?
Is my assumption correct?
My question is that as you testify here today, after having dropped off Karen Reed at the hospital for that Section 12, you don't know if the assumption that you made that you were dealing with the hypothermia situation was correct or not. Is that right?
Well, they were certainly working on him at the hospital as a hypothermia patient.
You don't know if your assumption was correct or not, sir.
I guess I don't.
And you told her, in fact, that you could not speak to that, correct?
I'm sorry, to what?
In terms of how long somebody could survive outside, correct?
I couldn't speak to his condition is basically what I was trying to say to her.
All right. But she still persisted in asking you over and over if he was alive or dead, correct?
Correct.
She wouldn't let that go. Is that fair to say?
Correct.
And that was despite your not being able to give her an answer, correct?
Again, we were just trying to sort of give her any hope.
Right. Okay. So she kept asking it, and you were trying to give her hope that he could still be alive, correct?
Correct.
All right. Now, today you claimed that her demeanor had changed when you mentioned Kerry Roberts, correct?
Correct.
And the term that you used to describe her demeanor when you mentioned Kerry Roberts as being part of a support system. What term did you use?
I'm sorry.
When you just testified on direct examination, did you characterize the way that she reacted when you mentioned Kerry?
She had been crying in her hands, and I said, you know, it looks like you have a very strong support system. And she picked up her head. She had her face in her hands. She picked up her head out of her hands, looked at me, and said, "Do you know Kerry Roberts?" And I said, "Matter of fact, I do." And she said, "Anybody who knows Kerry Roberts wouldn't say that about her."
Okay, and you've previously described that in testimony last year as her being snarky was the term you used, correct?
Correct.
But you were first interviewed by the police on February 8th of 2022, correct?
If that's what the report says, yes.
About 10 days after this?
About that.
And the events of January 29th were fresh in your mind on February 8th of 2022, correct?
As fresh as they are today.
Okay, so you do not allow that your memory was better on February 8th of 2022 regarding January 29th of 2022. It wasn't better on February 8th than it is today, is your testimony.
I would feel it's just as good.
Okay. Your memory does not get better over time, correct?
For this case, it seemed to stick out to me.
Okay, so are you testifying that your memory gets better over time?
No, but
that would be crazy, wouldn't it?
Correct.
In that February 8th, 2022 interview, you were asked about Kerry Roberts, right?
I'm sorry, what day?
February 8th of 2022.
Okay.
You were asked about Kerry Roberts, right?
I do not recall if I was or was not.
You told the police that you knew Kerry Roberts from your neighborhood, correct?
Okay, yes.
And you've testified today that she just lived 200 yards away from you, right around the corner, right?
About that.
And you told police that you had seen Kerry Roberts on scene at 34th Fairview when you got there, correct?
Correct.
You also told police that Karen Reed had told you about making statements about her wanting to die, correct?
Correct.
But on February 8th of 2022, just 10 days after these events, you never mentioned to the police during that interview that Karen was snarky in any way, correct?
I don't know if I did or I didn't. I don't know if it would be in their report.
If you saw that report, would it refresh your memory as to whether or not you mentioned snarkiness?
I don't think I mentioned snarkiness that day, no.
Okay. All right, well, that answers my question.
Okay.
But after that interview, and of course, even after January 29th of 2022, you went back to your neighborhood, the same neighborhood that you lived in with Kerry Roberts, correct?
Correct.
Do you still live in that neighborhood?
I do.
Does Kerry Roberts still live there?
She does.
So you and Kerry Roberts have continued to live in the same neighborhood for years after January 29th, correct?
We have.
And before you ever encountered Karen Reed that day, you had interacted with Kerry Roberts in the past, correct?
Briefly, yes.
Well, you were both on the same neighborhood Facebook page, were you not?
Yes, that's why I volunteered to bring the fire truck to the
Right.
block
So
party.
one time she had posted on that neighborhood Facebook page that she wanted to have a fire truck at the neighborhood block party, correct?
Correct.
And that's when you replied and volunteered that you would bring the fire truck to that block party as she requested, correct?
Correct.
And you also worked with Kerry Roberts on the Ponkapog Civic Association, did you not?
I did not know. She worked on the board prior to my arrival on the board.
So you both worked on the same board, but just at different times.
Different times, correct.
All right. I think you had touched on this earlier. In addition to knowing Kerry Roberts, having been with the Canton Fire Department since 2006, there've been many times when you've worked in conjunction with the police, correct?
Correct.
And in addition to the 2 police officers that you mentioned having seen at 34 Fairview on January 29th, that being Seraph and Mulaney, you know many other officers at the Canton police station.
I do.
And as you say, Canton's a small town, correct?
Relatively.
People know each other, correct?
Correct.
You also knew former state trooper Michael Proctor before you arrived at 34 Fairview, correct?
I did.
Michael Proctor actually was 2 years ahead of you in school, was he not?
He was.
And you learned at some point that your school classmate, Michael Proctor, was the lead investigator into the death of John O'Keefe, this case, correct?
Yes.
And in fact, when you spoke to the police in February of 2022, Michael Proctor was one of the troopers to interview you, correct?
Correct.
You did not go to school with Karen Reed, right?
No, not to my knowledge.
You didn't help coordinate neighborhood block parties with Karen Reed, right?
Nope.
You were not in a civic association that Karen Reed belonged to at any point, correct?
Nope.
She was a stranger to you on January 29th, 2022, correct?
She was a patient of mine, yes.
Well, as far as you knew, she was an outsider to Canton, correct?
I did not know that.
You didn't live in the same neighborhood with her?
I'm not sure if we did or did not.
You had no personal contact with her either before or after January 29th of 2022, correct?
No.
All right. Now, as a result of your having gone to the scene, there's a patient care record that is generated, correct?
Correct.
And on this issue of the snarkiness and the demonstration that you just did, there's a contemporaneous report of your team's observations from January 29th, right?
Are you referring to my partner's run report?
Yeah, the patient care report.
Yes.
All right. And that patient care report is dated January 29th of 2022 and is timed at 9:03 and 34 seconds a.m. Does that sound right?
Sounds about right.
All right. And that 9:03:34, from your knowledge of how patient care reports are generated, would that be the time that you arrived on scene or the time that the report is written?
I mean, I would have to see what time, the exact time you're referring to, but it could be the time the call is closed, or it could be the time you finish the report. There could be multiple reports. I'm not exactly positive which report you're talking about.
Okay. In any case, it was from that morning, correct?
Well, it did, I assume so.
I mean, there was only one morning that you went to 34 Fairview.
Well, no, but there could be 2 reports. So the engine has to write a report and the ambulance has to write a report.
But they're both about that morning, correct?
Correct.
All right. Now, there are boxes to fill out on the patient care record, correct?
Correct.
One of the boxes is primary impression.
Yes.
What does primary impression mean?
That is just what we believe the patient's not complaint is, but what we believe the patient is suffering from.
Okay. And that is listed on the patient care record for Karen Reed as a behavioral/psychiatric episode, correct?
Yeah. So that's a box we check for just about any Section 12.
Sure. And of course, that mentions nothing about snarkiness, correct?
No, that is my partner's report.
Okay. There's also a box for secondary impression, correct?
Correct.
What is secondary impression?
That might be like just a secondary complaint most of the time. A lot of the times, patients don't have a secondary complaint.
Okay, but in this case, it's listed as anxiety/emotional upset, correct?
Yes.
All right. And again, that mentions nothing about snarkiness, correct?
That's my partner's report, yes.
There's also a box for signs and symptoms, right?
There is.
And nowhere in the signs and symptoms box is snarkiness mentioned, correct?
No, I don't think that would be medically appropriate.
And then in the patient care record, it's recorded that Karen was found sitting in the front passenger seat of a friend's car, crying and visibly upset, but cooperative, right?
If that's my partner's words, yes.
All right. And those words, actually nowhere in the patient care record is it listed that she was snarky in any way, correct?
Again, that would not be something we would put into a patient care report.
And you did not put it in, correct?
It was my partner's report, and no, we did not put it in.
Okay. And once Ms. Reed agreed to go with you in the ambulance, it's fair to say she was still upset and crying, correct?
At times.
If I may have a moment.
Sure.
Actually, if I can just get my glasses so that I can see. Thank you. Okay. You had just testified that you said at times she was upset and crying when she got in the ambulance, correct?
Correct.
You testified on April 21st of 2022 before the grand jury, did you not?
I did.
And that was 3 months after the events that you're testifying about today?
Roughly.
And your memory back then was fresh, was it not?
Yes.
And you were asked the question, once she was in the back of the ambulance and she agreed voluntarily to go to the hospital, did she appear to calm down at that point? Do you remember that question?
I do.
And your answer was, I mean, she wasn't arguing against us at that point. I mean, once she, agreed to come with us voluntarily, I mean, she was still upset, crying, and talking on the phone. Do you remember that answer?
I do.
All right. You didn't mention in that answer that it was only at times that she was crying and upset, correct?
No.
Okay. The whole time, from beginning to end, Ms. Reed was constantly worried about John, was she not?
Objection.
Sustained.
You recall that she was on the phone at one point speaking to someone that she called Papa, correct?
Correct.
Did you later learn that Papa was John O'Keefe Sr.?
I am just learning that just now.
All right. And in any case, you heard her say to Papa, is he dead? He's dead, isn't he?
Sustained.
You could hear on the other end of the line that Papa was saying something to her, correct?
The objection sustained.
May I approach?
The witness or me?
Sidebar.
Okay.
Okay. I don't know exactly what he's trying to get this witness to say, but it doesn't seem to be working. I will say that the witness is getting a bit snarky, uncooperative, actually. But I know, darn well, if he had put all that in the report, they'd be calling how that's so unprofessional and that they had a personal bias against her. The man was doing his job. Did you really think he cared that much about all of this stuff with her? Seriously. You know what, Liam? This is a risk, Those actually really wanting to look at facts, science, and data are going to get into the position where they're going to say, are you actually trying to mislead me away from something? What do I need to look here for? Okay. That she was so upset but had time to talk about other people that were helping. And he had a right assumption. He said, what do you mean? She actually got up at 5 o'clock in the morning when you called her. She didn't know you that well. She's John's friend, not really your friend, and got up at 5 o'clock in the morning in a blizzard to help you go look for him. And she cares about John, and she's helping you, and she's talking snide. and nasty. Like, they are fishing with the wrong bait in a boat that on a frozen lake. Gin is a perfect way to look at it. I mean, I understand this is what they do. This whole team, this is what they do: poke holes, reasonable doubt, push, prod, shove. Like, I get it. I get it. It is what they need to do. But damn, you have to make it look so obvious that you're desperate. Will the trial report include the witnesses' snark? I'm not sure, Turtle Moon News, but if they actually check out my stream, it'll definitely pick up on the snark. It will definitely be there. Just for the record, we are saying snark, SNARK. Report it any way you want. Put it in the record. Document it. We said it. It's there. And that witness didn't care. Or the lawyer snark? Oh, well, I noticed they both did snark. That first day of testimony and with the hearing and everything going back and forth, Alan Jackson and Hank Brennan were snarky
I want
AF.
to keep you folks here until 4:30. It's been a long day. So I'm going to release you today. Have you
We are
back
breaking.
tomorrow. We'll make every effort to start right at 9 tomorrow. Please follow those cautions. Do not discuss this case with anyone. Don't do any independent research or investigation into this case. If you happen to see, hear, or read anything about this case, please disregard it and let us know, and be very careful on your social media, okay? Thank you. Have a good night.
Like,
All rise, please.
okay, I'm going to keep this up for a second because often, once the jury leaves, she's going to come back and talk to the attorneys. Like yesterday, I almost missed it ending the stream, but I'll just wait. We can look at the fan and the light, and maybe they'll go show us Couch's fan over on the other side. But I'll cut it if it comes up with that really nasty beeping screen thing. But a good day of testimony. Kind of strange. We had a rough start this morning. I knew it. I hear noise. I think it's only that. Here we go.
All right, so we're still in session.
Court is still in session. Please be seated. It's my fault.
All right, so I would like to move things along a little bit more expeditiously tomorrow. What would be very helpful to me, Mr. Brennan, are these clips. I haven't seen I haven't watched anything on television about any of these. Do you have them all in one compilation that I can look at in advance? If you don't, you don't.
I thought we had provided it to the court. If we haven't, we will. May I have a moment?
Sure. Is it 100 hours or something, or is it?
No, we sent the share file, but it's my oversight. We should have brought in a hard copy for you as well.
I don't know that I have a shared file. Was that?
Dropbox link
Oh.
on Monday that we sent,
All
but
right.
I can put it on a zip drive as I should have. And I can,
All right, because I couldn't open that. It needed an email and it didn't accept mine. That's
didn't
what
realize
that
the
was.
court didn't have access. We will get a zip file and
All
we'll
right, you
give,
talk to Tori about it, okay, Tori? You'll get it for me? All right,
the intention was that you'd have an advanced opportunity to look at them. I'll fix that failure.
all right. Have your associate talk with.
He's
Tori.
so
I will.
polite.
All right, all right. Anything we need to know before tomorrow?
No, Your Honor.
All right, we'll see you tomorrow.
Okay, so that's the end of that. That will avoid what happened today in regards to every time they want to play a clip, they being the Commonwealth, when Hank Brennan puts these clips down, which he got from 400 hours of like tape and everything. He did his work. He got it all together. He knows the words and he knows for what witnesses he wants to play them to counteract counterbalance some of the stuff that the defense puts there, trying to whittle away at the witnesses, like they did with the she said it, I hit him. Alan Jackson spent all that time trying to discredit that witness, that maybe she didn't say it, and then Hank Brennan comes back and just plays the clip where Karen actually admits to the interviewer that she does know she said it. She just doesn't think she said it as often as everyone is saying she did, but she does know she said it. And that's valuable. That is very damaging to the credibility of the defense's whittle work that they do on the witnesses. And so, having the judge look at everything ahead of time is going to slow it down, the process, and not take as long. Actually speed up the process, not slow it down, speed it up. It won't take as long, because then the defense can object. She already knows the clip that they're going to be talking about, and how the probative and prejudicial value of each comes into play. She still, because they've already been entered into the files, will probably let it come up. And she will then, at that point, because this was, she said when it all came in, is that it was relevant, in that the defendant's words could be used against her. So it is in. However, the defense gets to object per piece, just like they would with any other kind of evidence. Just because evidence gets entered into a trial, we all know it doesn't actually get played for the jury based on things that are going on and arguments that happen at the time. So the defense will still have to object to each one, but she'll be more prepared to decide on the fly and not have to put these. It's kind of prejudicial to the Commonwealth that we didn't get to actually play. There's not as much punch playing the clip of Karen making fun of Peggy O'Keefe when Peggy O'Keefe is not on the stand, and it just cried to the jury. That would have been a win-win, boom, boom. Playing it the next day is not going to have the same effect, although it will be information for the jury on what Karen's attitude was, and that Peggy O'Keefe denies having a counter and denies saying that. And so you wonder, maybe they will be wondering, why would Karen make up such a story? Why is she exaggerating by actually adding counters and things like that about the house in that don't exist? Is she that comfortable lying? Which I ask myself all the time. Is she that comfortable lying? Like, her stories get expanded. Her stories grow and change. She's getting pretty good, But then again, I'm not fighting for my life in a murder trial. Of course, they never claimed she didn't say it. They just complained how many times. Of course, they made that like, what does it matter? She said it. Do you think the jury really cares whether it's 2 times or 3 times? I mean, yeah, if somebody's perjuring himself, that's a big deal. But it was obvious that this was just a small memory blippy kind of thing. And he pretty much remembers the kernel of it, the core of the issue, is that she said it and how she said it. Damn it, you could have told those lawyers to stop the redundant questions. Defense asked one question 8 times and I was barely paying. I know. I almost fell asleep, I hate to say. Damn. Yep. All right, guys. Let's wrap it up. I will see you all back here at 9 o'clock in the morning. Well, a little before 9, hopefully. And hopefully the internet cooperates. I do apologize for the rough start. I'm glad we all worked it out and we got back on schedule. And, well, there's going to be quite a few days like this. I do believe there's only half a day on Friday, though. So we shall see. Okay. They have been here before. Why are they so bad? Hi, you know what? It's in their nature. I don't know. But I also think that it's a big hill to climb now, because they actually were with her for all these interviews. She had all her attorneys with her. They advised her it would be good. They were part of the documentary. Like, it was a whole big thing. Like, it was going to turn everything around, and it's actually being used against her. piece by piece now. It's not, going the way they thought. Actually, the documentary, when it came out, they thought it was going to be a slam dunk and all pro Karen, and it actually got a lot of pushback. A lot of people had a very bad opinion of Karen Reed after it. Well, I guess it just didn't go. I mean, they took a chance. She has a right to tell her story. You can't stop her from talking. But Hank Brennan then has the right to use everything she says against her. And it's a way to have her testify without testifying. Only the things he wants her to say. Like, in order to combat all of that, she'd have to take the stand. Do you think she will? That's a question we'll talk about tomorrow. Do you think she will? Anyway, have a great night, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. Don't forget to do the YouTube things like, share, subscribe, and please hit the back of the comment section. I want to hear from you. I want your questions. I want your opinions about the case in general, this case or any other case, something I'm covering or something I'm not. When we do trials, it does get focused mostly on those trials. You'll see 2 or 3 videos a day coming out. But I do want to hear from you. I'll you got questions, things to look up, like that consciousness of guilt that I was putting out before. I put the information in the chat. Definitely want to share that. I can get some links for you. That is a strategy that gets used with Karen Reed's need to get her side of the story out there in some way, and some of the actions she took. And some of her behaviors, I could see why Hank Brennan is going down that path. It is completely different from the first trial, from what I hear. And it actually allows a lot of this information to come in. So it's I would say clever. I think they thought Hank Brennan was going to be a nothing burger. And I don't think they've seen all of Hank Brennan yet. Seriously. So I'm getting some little glimpses, he can be very effective. Anyway, hit that comment section. See you all tomorrow. Good night.